I'm Madeleine Bullen.
And I'm Hannah Alford.
And this is Cine-pop Reacts. Today we are talking about Raya and the Last Dragon, Disney's newest release on both Disney Plus and in movie theaters. So, Hannah, going into the movie, what were you expecting? What were you thinking?
I really wasn't sure what to expect. I had seen several trailers for it and wasn't particularly excited because it just was it felt very generic and like we'd seen it before. It was like girl, dragon, end of the world. I feel like we do that a lot.
Well, they even said based on Moana, or from the people that brought you Moana, and it was this moment of like, oh no, is this going to be the Southeast Asian version of Moana? But actually seeing it,
I was very pleasantly surprised.
I was too.
It was good.
I really was impressed with the story. It was both engaging and had a really interesting message. And I think that they did a really good job not making it a girl movie. Disney has these Disney princess movies. And technically, Raya is she a princess?
Yeah, she was a princess.
She was a princess. But it didn't have a girly princessy feel to it. It really was just a well-told story that happened to feature
a lot of
girl.
Strong female characters just in general.
Yeah, so I really thought the plot captured a lot of the lore of Southeast Asia and how they see dragons. So one of the things I found really interesting is it's not really the traditional way we in America look at dragons. Traditionally, they're pretty large, they're very scary, and while they have some magic, it's not really it's not kind of the same magic as in Southeast Asian culture.
And it wasn't the idea, I feel like, in American culture. It's not the idea of dragons being guardians or protectors of the earth, which is very much how the interpretation was here.
Yes. So traditionally, dragons are very greedy and all these things. And this was a really different take. And it was based, it had one dragon, was the dragon we followed, which was Sisu, voiced by Awkwafina, who did a fantastic job. I thought she was hysterical. I've seen her in a few other things, notably Crazy Rich Asians. She played the best friend in that, and she was really fantastic. But this was the first time I've really heard her voice act. I know she's done other movies, but this is my first opportunity to see her. And I was just really impressed with just her comedic timing, especially in her interactions with other people.
I thought she brought some of the funniest moments of the movie, probably.
And you can kind of see her, there's some points where Susie turns into a person, and Sisu, right? Sisu turns into a person, and she, and you could kind of see the way they base the animation very much on Awkwafina. You could see her mannerisms and her facial expressions, which I thought was a really neat style for the animation, because so often you take a voice from a voice actor and then just put it in whatever your art concept is instead of kind of using those two things together. So do you want to kind of talk about the plot a little bit and like what you liked and what you didn't like in the story? It's complicated.
That is a big endeavor.
It's a big one.
The plot is just about this girl who is the princess of the Heart Water tribe. It's not a water tribe, but they are very water. So
let's pause for a second.
I found that it was very similar to Avatar: The Last Airbender. It had a lot of, I feel like, similarities in style and plot, and even just Avatar: The Last Airbender is about this little boy who's trying to save the world but isn't particularly qualified, which is very similar to the dragon Sisu in this film.
Also based on some Southeast Asian culture, so there were some similarities in lore and in storytelling styles that was kind of based very, very loosely on anime.
Right.
And
even just having different tribes that are all in strife together is kind of one of the primary concepts in Avatar. So if I call it the Water Tribe, it's because that's what it is in Avatar. But Heart, which is the tribe that the lead Raya is from, she is guarding this dragon stone, which is the last bit of dragon magic left in the world. The world had almost been torn apart by the Droon, which is an evil force that.
So this is one of my first issues, and I loved the movie, but the Droon were very nebulous in what they could do and how they interacted with people. What they were. We know that they could turn people to stone, that's what they did. And that whenever they did, they multiplied, but that was only mentioned. We never actually saw them multiply. And they didn't have a goal, an ultimate goal. They were just evil. And that's pretty much what we got.
The thought was kind of virus, is what it felt like. It kind of almost has some similarities to the COVID pandemic, where a sort of evil virus that was caused by corruption in humanity was destroying the earth. and that the dragons sacrificed themselves in order to save humanity and left this one stone, which was the last part of the dragon. And the tribes of the earth, instead of being united over the dragon's sacrifice, were fighting over it and tearing themselves apart instead of uniting under a common goal.
My other issue with the Droon is the whole water thing. They can't be in water or near water or be touched by water. And yet, some tribes live in the mountains where there is no water.
Well, no, that's why that tribe was gone.
Right, but it was just a moment of like, oh dear. Also, it doesn't ever rain? Is that part of it?
I don't think so.
Because then the Droon would be gone?
Well, the water is the gift from the dragons, and that's one of their main blessings to humanity, was their water powers and their water...
Helped grow
the
new life,
earth,
sustain people.
So the Droon just couldn't
deal with that.
be near water. There was just too much to handle.
I wasn't sure why they turned people to stone.
Why we didn't get water guns and squirt them, I don't know.
Flaws in that.
We didn't go there.
So I was confused by that. But ultimately, Raya, who is sort of helping her father, or Raya, excuse me, helping her father guard the dragon's stone through trusting someone maybe she shouldn't have trusted, lets loose the Droon upon the world again. After
while the tribes are fighting over the stone shatters and the Droon are released back into the earth. So that's where we start the story.
Yeah.
Raya's father is turned into stone. Most of her village, most of the entire world.
They said thousands and thousands of people had been turned to stone from this Droon.
So Raya is searching for the last dragon on Earth to bring back peace and to restore everyone. Kind of Avengers Endgame, where we want to save all the population that has been...
And they bring them back.
Yes.
With water, but not all water, magical water. And for some reason, after the Droon were defeated the first time, none of the dragons came back. Yeah. Now, this is my biggest sticking point with the movie. Why didn't the dragons come back the first time? And then why, spoiler if you haven't seen Raya yet, do they come back in the end?
The explanation in the movie is humanity didn't deserve them, so they decided not to come back. And then humanity trusts each other again, so they deserve the dragons again.
A small group of humanity trusts each other.
Like 5 people trust each other, so all humanity is worth it.
And the dragons came back. That was my biggest... And they asked the question.
Yeah.
Sisu asked the question, like, why didn't they all come back? And then we never answered that question. We said some
vague, humanity's
troubled. But that was
broken.
it. And so that, I think, was just a little bit... They tried to pack a lot in. This was a whole fantasy world with its own set of rules.
They had to set up all the world.
There's a lot of exposition. And overall, they did a really good job making it engaging and giving us a taste of these different tribes without it just going on forever. But I feel like there were some things missing because it was just a lot of story. In about a 2-hour movie, they packed a lot in. And that kind of, in my opinion, messed with the pacing just a little bit.
A little bit. It got a little bit listy because in the movie, once Raya brings back this dragon, they're looking for the other pieces of the shattered stone. So each of the tribes had claimed a piece of the stone, and she was trying to hunt them down. There's 5 tribes. So... that's a lot of stones to recollect, so it's a little bit like, let's go here and get the stone, let's go here and get the stone, let's go here.
It's definitely quest. It's a quest, and you'd go travel around and do the different things.
So that made the pace in the middle get a little bit slow, in my opinion.
Well, and they were able to get some of the stones really fast. And the explanation is the Droon had killed off a lot of people, so they were able to go into, I think, Tail really easily and just, like, take it with them.
Right.
The other part of this is Namari, who is a princess of the Fang.
The
Fang tribe.
The kind of more, like, evil
They're
tribe.
the bad guys because they ride cats. And they're crazy cat people. They're not cat people. They just love cats. And so she...
makes them sound like they're 80 years old and they're on the porch like, oh, I love you, cat.
They're evil.
Big evil cats.
Yes. But Namari has a thing against Raya. She betrayed her, Raya. She betrayed her originally. And she wants to hunt her down for reasons that are personal that were very vague to me at first. I didn't understand why exactly she was so intent on getting Raya. Once Raya started stealing stones, I understood, but she was chasing her even before that.
She stole like a scroll But the scroll, they were even like, this is a worthless scroll. It means nothing. So I don't know why they were chasing her.
It was a little confusing. It felt like we just needed some clashing between two powerful women.
Exactly.
And it's how it definitely felt.
Well, and that was another one of my problems. I didn't quite understand the logic in why the Fang were the most opposed to helping.
Yeah.
Because they were just like, we need to bring peace to the world ourselves, and we can't
we
work
need to
with
look out
anyone
for
else.
ourselves.
Yeah.
And ultimately it was that little section was a message against like nationality or being a nationalism. Yeah. About only looking out for yourself and not looking out for the rest of the world. It felt very forced in there to make that comment, and it wasn't necessarily a bad comment to be made.
Mm-hmm.
The other tribes, groups needed help, and the Fang definitely was ignoring them. Yeah. But it seemed there were moments where the story felt a little political in what they were trying to say and some of the comments they were making, where I felt like it was a little bit clunky. It just didn't flow well with the rest of the story.
Well, because I didn't see the motivation in not all coming together to work together earlier. Yeah. Because they did by the end, which was a very nice moment. But there just didn't seem any good motivation because everyone had lost loved ones to this problem, that we weren't working together. And maybe that was the commentary on the world, that even though we're all in pain, that we don't always work together.
But it felt confusing from a story perspective. But yeah, so let's talk about kind of the message that the movie was trying to say. We're talking a lot about trust in the movie, which I thought was a really interesting. Not a lot of movies focus that hard on just trusting people and believing the best in people. Sisu was really Raya was not trusting. She did not,
which I thought was really interesting to have the like princessy lead be the person who's kind of the most, not necessarily cynical, but the most against letting people in or helping her. I thought that was really nice.
In contrast to all the other
where she
princesses.
was the most probably jaded princess I'd seen, in the sense that she had seen trouble and had been hardened by that.
And by something that made sense. And this is something doesn't happen in Disney movies a lot. We don't really get to see what creates these, especially for princess movies. And we're speaking mostly as we grew up with princess movies. We enjoy princess movies.
I love princess movies.
Yeah. But we don't normally get to see what gave them their scars, their quirks that make them interesting, either because they don't have any, a la Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, or just because we didn't have time in the movie, or we did it in a song like Elsa.
Things like Rapunzel, where she doesn't have a lot of scars. She's just been very sheltered and naive.
Which would have caused scarring.
Which would have caused scarring, but we ignore that. We ignore the
princesses.
Princesses are strong and they don't need to have scars. And I liked seeing Raya struggle throughout this
I liked
whole thing.
that she was both strong and then had flaws and learned and would grow. And that's, I feel like, a trend with movies about women currently is in this idea that women need to be strong. We don't really see much of an arc, and we try not to let them have too many flaws because that would make them too flawed to be the hero.
And that's why I really liked Raya. She was very flawed, and she was very headstrong and stubborn.
Relatably
but she was still,
so.
Exactly. It was very relatable. But she was still a person, and she still had feelings, and we didn't lose that in our effort to make her a strong female character.
As like they didn't give her magic. And this is this is a big point that really bothers me with movies like the more modern Mulan, is we feel like we have to give our girl heroes powers or they can't be heroes. And that's just such a sad message to send to little girls.
Because they can't have magical powers.
Exactly. So looking at someone who works hard, who obeys her parents, for once the Disney princess obeyed her father and did what he asked her to do, and it was a little bit better. She grew and she was healthier when she listened to her parents. And
her dad was really advocating for that peace. You frequently see even in Moana, where it's like this really stubborn dad who's like, no, I will not listen to others. And the dad was the one advocating for the world. He really wanted everyone to come together and work together. And he tried to convey that message to Raya. And then once he was taken away from her, she completely just was like, no, I can't trust anyone.
Yeah. But he was really a good heart. And that made their relationship so sweet. And you don't see a lot of really great father-daughter relationships. No. I mean, Belle and Maurice in Beauty and the Beast are they're fine. Sweet, they love each other. You know they love each other.
He's kind of quirky. And,
But like this father-daughter relationship had so much heart and soul because it felt like a real father who loved his daughter, and then a daughter who looked up to her dad.
Her so much and was training her to be a warrior and training her to be strong, but then not.
And there was no discussion of wanting a son, which I'm thankful for because there's so many movies
I know.
where it's like, hey daughter, I would rather have a son, but I'll train you to be a boy.
You.
Yeah, and that's just always so sad. So it's so great to see a movie where he's proud he has a daughter and she equally is trained, and that's, I think, one of the best parts about this movie is there wasn't really a big gender distinction between training and leadership, which was great because it allowed like the women leaders to be women but still be strong and it not be a big deal. It wasn't like she's a woman.
It didn't have as much of that feminist agenda where it's like we have to show that we're not only strong women but we're better than all the men, which I feel like can be conveyed in some movies that we've seen more recently come out.
Captain Marvel. But where this one it felt very equal, and there was some of the characters like Boone, the one of the little boys who joins her. Raya collects a whole menagerie of people and animals.
Every village or town or wherever they go, they kind of bring a person with them.
Someone who's lost and
someone
just needs
who's
a family.
lost and whose family was taken away from them. They just kind of wind up taking a bunch of abandoned children and an old man
and some monkeys
and a baby.
Boone was the first one who kind of joined her and Sisu, and he has a boat, which was very useful. And I really enjoyed his character too because he was a very sweet young boy who was also very useful and very funny. He had a lot of comic relief. And I appreciated that he wasn't a super flirt. I appreciate there was no romance in this story because that could have made it awkward. I feel like that first tendency to make the young teenage boy super like flirty is in there. That's a very like common thing. And as soon as I saw him, I'm like, oh no,
I know.
He's going to be hitting on Raya this entire time.
Because he was kind of like really charming at first. And I was like, oh no, here we go again. But then it didn't go past that. And he was just a really cute kid.
They developed real relationships.
It was very like sibling, like little brother, which you don't see. Like Disney princesses don't get that little brother relationship. No. Brave is the only, Merida's the only princess that has a younger brother.
That's true. That's weird. But yeah, so that was just a fun relationship. I mean, we have a little brother, so it's fun to get to see that on
there was a lot of relationships represented, which you don't normally see. Even they bring this random baby
con
artist baby who like steals stuff and is like
with her three trained monkeys.
She's like the ringleader of these monkeys.
Yep.
It's very strange explaining.
We kind of gloss over that one in a unique way of
and
like,
we pick up this old burly man, and then the baby and the man really bond, and it's this cute like father-daughter again relationship where he's this like big tough man, but he like loves this little baby, and it's very cute.
It's very cute, and it's just like you said, sweet to see those relationships represented well, and just as part of life, and that's what I was so appreciate about this story was it wasn't this let's stop and take a big moment and discuss how we're like a brother and sister or discuss how this is a father-daughter. They just made it part of the story, which made the world feel very real. The characters feel super relatable because that's how real life is.
We all have those.
We develop relationships and people. We don't
sit down and go like, you are.
To me, you are a sister. It's just that this is how it is. And so that was a really... It just added so much depth to what was going on. That was so much fun. And then I really appreciated, ultimately, the Namani and Raya's relationship. They started out as kind of friends as children.
They were friends, but then you kind of learned that the friendship on Namari's end was only being used, like she was using Raya to get to the stone, which is...
Sad and causes trust issues.
And causes her to have a lot of
trust issues.
Because the broken trust caused the end of the world. So you kind of understand why she has trust problems.
And then they do grow and their relationship grows. And what I appreciate was that when they do eventually learn about trust and Raya learns to trust others and Namani does a great job, like, when she is trusted with something, she rises to that occasion, which I think is a great message, that when you give people trust, they tend to rise to that, and they tend to want to live up to your expectations of them, instead of just always, if you always assume the worst about people, they're probably gonna deliver
Give
the
you the
worst.
worst.
That's what's going to happen. But I liked that didn't erase the past entirely.
No.
Because a lot of times we try to wrap everything in a lovely bow. And this was wrapped in a lovely bow.
It was. It ended very well.
But it didn't feel like, and now we're best friends and practically sisters.
Like, this is still really awkward.
This is a little tense.
But we're here now.
But we work on trust. And I think that trust is something that is grown. And I think that shows in this movie, too, that it's your actions and how you behave develops trust. But sometimes that first step, you just have to take the first step and trust
And then
somebody.
it wasn't even that they were best friends by the end of it, but I think they had this mutual respect. And it's like, even though we're not going to be close, I can respect
Which
you.
I liked a lot,
together.
too, because a lot of times, again, in women movies, and we don't want to say it's not a movie just for women. It's a really fantastic movie, but in stories that primarily focus on women, just that mutual, just like respect and not needing to be best friends and not needing to be sisters or arch enemies. You can just have a respectful, that's unique. And it felt very unique. And when I was watching, I was like, that is a different kind of relationship than we see a lot.
Right. I just really appreciate the overall message to not only little girls, but like to as these women being role models for little girls of I can be strong, I can be mad. That doesn't give me the right to hurt people, but I'm allowed to be mad. And just I can feel all of these things without losing my strength.
Without taking it out on the people around me. And
but I can still be human. And,
yes.
And I think that's what we sometimes lose with feministy, like, go girl power stories, is that you can still be human.
You can still feel all the things, and that those flaws don't make you inherently weaker, and that men can feel it too. And that was the other part of the story is with Boone and with Tong, the older man they take from the spine, and with the dad, they all feel these things and have these really genuine emotional reactions to the world around them without making them less tough or less men. So it was really ultimately, Raya and the Last Dragon is a beautiful story about human beings who go on a very high fantasy, fun, silly, I laughed out loud several times, and beautifully animated adventure. But it's a story about people, and it's a beautiful story about people, and one I think that's worth watching.
And I think especially during this very trying time for everyone, it's just a nice message about unity and the importance of people, and that we all need people in order to grow and in order to really live life. And that coming together is more important than all of the things that tear us apart.
Yes, well said. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Cine-pop Reacts. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to our channel on YouTube so you can stay up to date with all of our videos and content. And thanks for watching.